No audio.
Enjoy the first talk and see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Hello? Check. Can you all hear me in the back? No? Really? No? Check. 1, 2, all the way in the back. Shut up, Codemod. Hi. My name is Sunil. I work on the React team in the London Facebook office. Before we get started, hello, India. This is kind of a dream come true for me to have a React conference in India, and it's in Goa, which is nice. It's also nice to be the first talk because then I get to party after this, so it's excellent. I want to thank the organizers for putting this together. It's been a dream of mine to see a conference, a big international conference like this, and it's awesome to see everybody together. I specifically want to thank my friend Manjula, who reached out to me, made sure that this happened. She's everybody's friend. She's so nice. So if you see Manjula, you should thank her on my behalf, and you should say that I sent to her. Before I get into my topic, this is a screenshot of me giving my first talk about 8 or 9 years ago. It was one of the first JSFU conferences. This was in a classroom in a small school or college in Pune. Midway through my talk, the lights went out. So if that's a technical difficulty today, that's just a repeat. During this talk, I was talking about how amazing Backbone was, how it's going to last for the next 15 years, how templates are great, how event handlers should be delegated and stuff like that. I had no idea that I was going to be so completely wrong about it. But the reason I brought this up is, before this talk, I didn't know anybody. It's hard making friends when you're an adult. I went to this conference, I met some friends who are my closest friends even now. We went out later that night and got drunk, and I still meet them whenever I do. So I think really my message, the reason I'm saying this is that you should not look at speakers and assume we're anything special. We're just regular people. And what I want to see is more of you coming on stage and expressing yourself and being yourself. We have a unique identity of a combination of culture and technology in this country, and we should be much bigger on the international stage. So this is a sign for you to all go out and give your own talks. Get rejected in the CFPs and go out there. Anyway, so next slide. Do you know what this is the logo for? What? No, you're wrong. Look at your sign. This is the logo for React. Everybody gets it wrong. Every time you use the emoji, you need to turn it by 90 degrees. I just needed to put a React logo somewhere, but that's a React logo. This is not the React logo. This is the React logo. Anyway, so it's been a good year for React, I think. This year has been a year of stability, but without stagnation. Some of the highlights of this was we released hooks earlier this year. Anybody used hooks? It's kind of nice. Yay, functions. Which is awesome because you don't need to use classes anymore, but now you get to argue about functions and use memo on JavaScript Twitter, I guess. We released a new version of DevTools, which was great. Very fast, incredibly fast. We also released a new scheduler, but there's no public API for it. But if you ever find Andrew Clark online or in person, you need to thank him because that's where all the magic happens. We've been talking to the Chrome folks about it, and that's pretty good. One of my favorite features that we launched is native lazy loading, which is great. It uses very general JavaScript syntax, dynamic imports, and the idea is that you mark a module as lazy, and you can wrap it up with a fallback. And it's pretty cool. You can give like a loading state before the thing actually loads. The really nice thing about this is that it decouples the actual loading and the spinner, so you can have the asynchronous component somewhere deep in the tree, and you can have a fallback elsewhere. This is great for composition and for better products, I suppose. It's much. There are no callbacks. There's nothing to handle. It works naturally. And the fashion is this. Until the component loads, it'll show you a spinner, and once the component actually loads, it'll show you the component. That said, the best part of the React ecosystem, I think, is you people. This React ecosystem is known for embracing new ideas. We fight a little bit online, which is fine, I guess, but it's been great to see that we are able to move forward without having to rewrite our app every few months. Anyway, so now let's get to my actual talk. We are going to watch an actual website load. I was warned not to show any Facebook work, which meant that I had to show some of my work. And I don't know if some of you folks know, one of your sponsors here is Myntra. I used to work in Myntra, so we are actually going to go through the Myntra website loading, just the search page, okay? Cool. Play. It loads a bunch of stuff, sidebar, and products. That's how normal websites work, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is there were a bunch of individual loading states while it loaded, and we're going to go through it one by one, and we're going to count. All right? So, one, you can't really tell, but there's a little search box in the top. A little text loads. The next thing happens is that the header loads. This is because the web font has taken that long to load. Next, a whole bunch of frames load. You might notice that some of the images are still missing. Those come in the next slide. You can see a bunch of icons pop in. Then one by one, all the product photos come in. Right? This is not, I'm not saying Myntra, like this is still my code, by the way. I checked some of it is still my code. This isn't to say that the code is bad. It's just that the platform actually makes it hard to do something that's polished and nice. And when people talk about apps versus websites, this is exactly what they talk about how it's different. So why does this happen? So here's some code, right? There's a div and there's an IMG tag. You write it, you render it, you expect some text to show up and an image to render. Except it doesn't actually work that way. The div is synchronous. You load it, the text loads immediately. But the image isn't. The browser has to make a fetch, is to get some data, come back, decode, and render. Which is why you get a whole bunch of loading states in the middle, right? It's just weird. So how do we fix that? Like if we wanted to behave more like an app, maybe we can render the images synchronously, just like we do text. Is this a good idea, do you think? Like just block rendering on images? No. This is why we don't do synchronous XSR calls as well. You don't want to lock up the site. It would take minutes for a single web page to load. So we have a problem here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about just images specifically and like a classification for them. And let's see what we can do about it. So I think images belong on a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum is what I call UI images. These are images that should never show holes. So icons, right? You can never render the button without the icon. It wouldn't make sense. This is the Facebook input box. Thankfully, there's some text there, but for buttons that don't actually have text, you might not know what it is until the button actually pops up. This is the left sidebar of Gmail. So these are what I call UI images. They have meaning, and you can never really render a whole. On the other side of the spectrum is something I call content images. So I'm going to show you two photos as content. So these are things that users upload. So this is my favorite photo. It's on my Twitter profile. This is my favorite photo of my favorite band, Nirvana, standing underneath a Jenny Holzer art installation. The second photo is going to shock you. I will tell you what it is before I do. This was when I was blonde for 1 month. This is what I look like. I was dating a woman who ended up becoming my wife. Can you believe she said yes to me after I look like that? That's a little messed up. But my point is that we upload photos of different kinds, and that's what I call content images. And somewhere in the middle is what I call content UI, which is a terrible word. But the idea is that you're not sure whether it's exactly a UI image or it's content. So a great example of that are the little avatar profiles on Twitter. Like without any title, text, or anything, you know exactly what happens when you click on it, right? It goes to the profile. Any social media site, anything. You click on a user's picture and it goes there. So this is the classification of images based on loading and rendering. And we need primitives to handle it nicely. So I did a bit of scientific research, which is to say I put a tweet out there and I asked people what they think. And I found like a bunch of answers. These are some of the popular ones that I found. So if you use Gatsby, there's something called Gatsby image. It's awesome. It renders like an outline for you. It makes sure that the image is multiple versions of the image are there that renders for the kind of screen that asks for it. That's pretty cool. If you use Polymer, there's something called Ion Image. Yes, a React developer is talking about web components on the stage, but it's pretty good. It has like some preloading logic. There's a new spec called lazy loading for images, and the browser decides when to load it and when to render it, which is awesome for off-screen images and to keep your bandwidth low. And of course, there's a classic link rel. If you put a header, you can actually preload the image until it's asked. Very cool stuff. And a bunch of other stuff. However, you notice that none of these actually solve the problems that we had that I spoke about and the spectrum of images, I think we can do better. So, fair warning, this is not something we're shipping in React. This is just experimental because I want to share new ideas with you folks. You will not be able to download it today. It doesn't exist anywhere online. It's just an idea. Right, back to the old thing about lazy loading, right? So this is the example that I showed you. It's suspense with a fallback, a spinner. So what if instead of components, we could render images there and it did the same thing? Just a regular IMG tag. That would be nice, right? Like it would render a spinner until the image is showed. Let's look at some of the use cases that we can handle for this, okay? So first one is all at once. So this is for icons. You don't want to show any holes. You want to show a spinner until everything loads. So it looks something like this. A bunch of images inside a suspense tag, a fallback. What would it look like? I actually have a video. So spinner, 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 and images. These are some of my favorite albums, by the way. That's nice. That's great. That's a better experience than loading it in patches. The other one is a very common one. You want to load like a blurry image before you, or a black and white image, or an SVG image like Gatsby. This one is simple enough, just like the previous one. You mark a fallback, and you render the fallback, which is the blurry version, until the actual image loads. But if you look closely, it's another IMG there. So what if that actually suspends as well, right? Well, in that case, you can wrap it with another fallback itself. Maybe something that doesn't use an image. It can be a spinner. Alternately, if you don't want to do this because it's getting a little deep, you can just mark the blurry image as loading lazy. Yay, spec. We didn't have to invent a new API for it. So that's pretty cool. Photo grids are like my favorite thing because they're really hard to do right on the web. And a naive version of it would look something like this, right? Like if we had 4 photos, we would put like 4 gray blocks while it loads. I hate this. This is a terrible API because you can't really compose it with anything else. What you really want to do is wrap every image with its own placeholder. But then how do you compose it such that do you wrap it with another suspense fallback, but then it wouldn't show you the little gray ones per image? What if we had a magic component called list, and it took a prop called together, where you say, okay, every suspense fallback underneath this has to resolve, and only then do all of them commit? What would that look like? So again, a little video for it. Wait, and all the images load. Nice. We can go further. Now, instead of together, what if it was... I'm going really fast because the timer was wrong when I started, I think. What if we could render it one after the other? This is a common use case with feed items or Instagram, right? You don't want the second image to load before the first image loads. That sounds reasonable. So what if you could do something like this? What would that experience look like? Right, so blink and you'll miss it, but note that it loads in order. All right, so here's another video. Wait, and boom, one after the other. I want to play that again because it's just so nice as an experience. Wait, boom. We can go further. What if we want to do it backwards? What if you can just pass a backwards prop to it? What would that look like? Wait, and backwards. That's kind of insane. There are no callbacks anywhere. You never had to write a single onload handler. And you get these experiences out of the box if React gave it to you or if the web gave it to you. And it seems like these are now composable. You can now nest suspense fallbacks inside lists, inside more lists, and you can do chunk loading. Maybe you want to do like 8 images at a time. That's pretty cool. This sounds like a great idea, right? Like everybody wants it right now. There are trade-offs, like anything else. It would be nice if all images behaved this way, but devices are different, networks are different. If you wait for all the images to load before you actually show content, then your site is going to feel slower than it actually is. You want to make sure that that doesn't happen. What can we do better? Well, a nice thing we can do is maybe we can do timeouts. Wait for 2, maybe 3 seconds. And if the actual image doesn't load, then you know what, screw it, just render what you have and go for it. That's a great, what's the word for it? What's the opposite of progressive enhancement? Graceful degradation. That's graceful degradation, isn't it? It couldn't do the nice experience, so it says, okay, fine, let's just fall back to a natural web behavior. Other things, especially for an India market, right? What if it's server rendered HTML? Are you going to send an IMG tag down and then show a spinner and then show the image after it? That's 3 loading states for what should have been 1. How do you fix that? We have some ideas, but and I have nothing to share about this, but understand that while you might want a very perfect experience that your designer and your product manager sit together and do, there will be trade-offs with every solution. And these are the things that you will have to consider. Maybe it's something that your framework should give you out of the box. Maybe it's something that the platform should give you out of the box. Why would we even want to do this, though? Have you noticed how people say that like apps are better than websites? Why do they say these things? Like they say, oh, it's smoother, but you're still rendering at 60 FPS on a browser. Really what it is about a polished experience, right? You want to be very intentional about the experience that you want to give. You want it to be deliberate. You want to think about every single second. When I showed you the loading screens, there would have been things that you wouldn't have seen if I hadn't pointed it out to you. If I hadn't gone through it screen by screen. You saw Myntra load, and it loads pretty fast as a website. But even if you go through it frame by frame, you see that it's not actually a polished experience for no fault of the developers themselves. So what I want to point out is I think now we need to start looking at the websites that we build with a higher standard. You can't just do the very basics that things give you out of the box with a Next.js or a Gatsby.js. And I think this is going to be the next thing that frameworks like React actually work on, about intentional, deliberate experiences. I don't have much else to say. I think I actually ran through my entire slides because of a bad timer. But what I do want to impress on you is to think more deeply about the experiences you give out. It could be images. It could be the data fetching that you do. Make sure that you load your components together. Maybe they should all operate in the same system. And think about the UIs that you build. It's a very short talk, but I hope you enjoyed this. And have a great time at the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.
This video recording was brought to you by Twilio. We allow you to integrate different means of communication such as video, chat, or SMS into your React applications. If you want to learn how you can send SMS directly from a React chat, check out this video on the right or go to our Twilio YouTube channel. And if you want to watch another React India talk, we picked one out just for you over here on the left. Thanks for watching.